Alors, on va vous présenter maintenant une run de Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, par Glan. Et puis, je te passe la parole, Glan.
Hi everyone, what's up? I'm Glan. I'm going to be running Echoes of Wisdom. I'm going to be running the 90% restricted category. So this is the newest Zelda game. It's already pretty broken, but we'll have a lot of downtime early on to talk about that. So I'm just going to get right into it here. So I'll count down 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so anyone familiar with the Zelda series would know that this is kind of the first like mainline canon Zelda game where Zelda is actually the main playable character, which is really neat. But we do start off with a little bit of an introduction section here playing as Link. This section, there's not really a lot to it. We're pretty much just kind of like, you know, walking through some hallways, killing some monsters or whatever. We end up fighting Ganon to rescue Zelda, so it's kind of like a compact version of the typical Zelda title there. So it just kind of introduces some mechanics and stuff like that. After that, we will be playing as Zelda. So Link starts off kind of keeping the tradition from Tears of the Kingdom, where Link kind of starts off super souped up. He has his full hearts and all his gear and everything. I'm gonna drop a little bomb chew friend here just for fun. So yeah, this game's kind of a continuation of the engine that was used for the Link's Awakening remake, but it's a bit enhanced and stuff from that. Very cute little chibi characters. A little bit of combat training there. We can just take all those guys out with one spin attack. So after just a little bit longer here, we're going to be coming up on the Ganon fight. The Ganon fight, we're going to fight him with bombs, which is a pretty unusual way to fight Ganon. But bombs do a lot of damage in this game, so we're going to be able to deal with him pretty quickly there. Very cool. Alright, so we're going to start off by dropping a bomb chew and hitting with an arrow. That's going to be enough to advance into the next phase. And then we'll just, you know, throw some bombs at him. And he's dead. So that's kind of an introduction to, in a way, how a lot of bosses work in this game. They're not actually like purely random. Bosses are overall pretty scriptable in this game, which is very nice for speedruns. Even though they have like kind of random movement, like if you do the same thing, they'll do the same thing. So, you know, fight like this, we should get it down to a science. And turns out Ganon wasn't actually real. Link is gonna go to the Shadow Realm. But we're going to save Zelda here. We'll let Zelda escape, and she's going to do some stuff. Rescue Link. We're switching the roles this time. So we're going to grab Link's cloak that he threw off, and then we have a little bit of just kind of escape sequence. We're going to run out. This rift is going to expand behind us. It's not really dangerous. It's kind of just basically an auto-scroller. So I'm going to kind of start talking about the run as a whole. So this game, a lot of Zelda games have kind of a unique like mechanical gimmick to them. In this game, it's the ecosystem, kind of, you know, based on the title. So the ecosystem allows us to essentially learn objects that we encounter along our journey and then summon copies of them at will. And there's a lot of variety in echoes that you can get, including like all enemies in the game pretty much can be copied. Which you use to fight for you. You'll use a bunch of objects to kind of get around the world quickly. So all the speedrun routing and strats kind of revolve around that, at least, you know, after the intro sequence here. There's a lot of really cool routing and strats you can do with all sorts of different echoes. And the game is kind of designed to give you like freedom in puzzle solving and like how you approach problems and what tools you use to get past them. But a lot of things in the game also kind of have like intended ways, like ways that kind of nudge you to solve them. So there's a lot of interesting routing, both kind of in like using echoes you're not supposed to solve things and like getting around the echoes that you're supposed to use, that sort of thing. In this run, we're actually not going to get very many echoes at all. We're going to complete it with 5, which there's a total of 127 you collect in the game, so 5 is not very many. One unfortunate thing about this game is there are kind of a lot of cutscenes, especially at the beginning, but that's okay. We'll have some donation time here. If there are any donations to be read, we could do some now.
Unfortunately, we don't have any donation yet, but we are $445 away from our bonus run, Mario with a Shotgun, which is apparently very, very fun. So I want to see that. So people, please donate generously. Donnez généreusement. On est à $445 seulement de la bonus run de Mario with a Shotgun.
Mario with a Shotgun is very silly. Yeah, so I'll talk a bit more about kind of the structure of this run in general. So this is the 80% restricted category, and you'll see by the estimate of 50 minutes that clearly we're not going to play this entire game in 50 minutes. Because this is, you know, a relatively long game, a lot of cutscenes and stuff, a lot of dungeons. We're not going to be playing most of it, so basically this run is going to look like we're going to essentially play like normal up to beating the first dungeon, and then we're going to do wrong warp to reach the end. And wrong warps are kind of the big like glitch that we get to make use of in speedruns for this game, and they were discovered like only a couple days after the game came out, which is, you know, typical. Now, I mean, you might be wondering as well, like, if we're just going to warp to the end of the game, what exactly is the restricted part of any percent? So the restriction comes down to basically the method of wrong warp that we're able to use. So there's 2 different forms of wrong warping that we can do in this game, which are random and indexed. So with a random wrong warp, basically the destination that you warp to is not controllable by you. It's random. It's not technically random, but it's effectively random. And that's a technique that can be used to skip completing the first dungeon. The setup for that is quite complicated, and you get one shot at it, and then you get a random warp destination to basically get out of the like early game intro area that you're boxed into. And not only is the destination of the warp random, so you could get sent to like a place that's way further away than you want to be or whatever, it also has a chance to just straight up crash the game, and then your run's basically over. So not very marathon safe, can be a little grueling to grind over time. So the restricted category bans the use of random wrong warps, and instead we're only allowed to use the indexed one, which is one where we're able to control the destination that we warp to. I'll talk more about kind of how that works later when we actually get to it. But that's kind of where the restriction comes from, and basically we're not really able to do that until we beat the first dungeon, which allows us to escape the kind of boxed in early intro area. So we got some cutscenes here kind of laying out the base story of the game, where basically there's these rifts, the big like purple tears in the fabric of reality popping up over Hyrule. Zelda gets falsely accused of creating them and gets thrown in jail, and then she kind of has to escape and sneak around in order to fix that problem.
So we have people in the chat asking if German was a strategic choice,
yes.
Or is it because you speak it?
Yes, German is one of the fastest languages for this game. So there's been a little bit of uncertainty of whether German or simplified Chinese is faster. There's a few factors that go into that. One is that whenever we activate the waypoints, which are like the warp points, the fast travel points, every language except German and Dutch gives 2 text boxes, and German and Dutch give 1 each. But German has a comparable number of text boxes to the Asian languages. which overall makes it pretty fast. However, it was found at some point that Chinese text loads a little bit faster, but it's still a little bit unclear whether that makes up for the extra waypoint text boxes or not. So it's kind of, it's a bit runner preference between those two. I like German because I can actually read the words, kind of. And either way, like, the language doesn't make a big difference in this game. It's pretty much just about the number of text boxes that are in dialogue, and it's not that different between languages. Like, you're saving, over this whole run, German's saving maybe like 5 to 10 text boxes or something. It's not very much. It's like a couple seconds. So here we meet Try. Try's kind of her like companion helper in this game, and he's going to give us the Try Rod, which is the item that allows us to actually make use of the Echo system. And we're going to quickly afterwards get our first Echo, which is the table. So the table will allow us to do a little bit more kind of platforming to reach higher spots. Another thing kind of worth mentioning, this game does allow the use of turbo for text, so, you know, I don't even have to hold the button for these cutscenes. You may have noticed that. It's quite nice. Since there's a lot of text in this game, there's a lot of mashing if we don't allow turbo. So here we can learn the table, and then we'll be able to spawn the table wherever we want, and it's going to let us get out of the jail. After that, we're going to have a stealth section to get past some guards. And I'm going to make use of a little kind of movement optimization called spawn jumping, where basically I'm going to jump and very quickly afterwards press Y to spawn a table in front of me and jump onto the table as I'm spawning it, which saves just a little bit of time over kind of placing it and then jumping it, because there's a little animation of Zelda swing the Try Rod whenever she spawns an Echo. It's pretty consistent, but it is position-based, so you have to have like visual cues on the floor of where to do it. So just like that. And these guards aren't very good at their job. So here we have kind of the sketchiest part of this. We're going to lure this guy all the way over here, and then do a spawn jump there. If I fail that spawn jump, then I get caught and lose about 45 seconds, so good thing we got it. Not too difficult overall. So we have another quick cutscene here where we meet Impa. Impa's the only one who doesn't believe the lie that Zelda created the rift, so she's going to help us kind of get out. We're going to put on Link's cloak as a disguise, and doing that is also going to unlock the ability to spin. So that's kind of similar to like the spin dash in Paper Mario, if you're familiar with that. It's a really good mechanic. It does a lot of things, so it lets you move a little bit faster just by kind of repeatedly spinning, but you also use it to break bushes and cut grass and stuff. You can also use it to deflect enemy attacks if you time it right. So it's kind of put in the game kind of as a bit of a replacement to Link's like typical abilities, because, you know, they wanted Zelda to be a distinct character from Link and not using like a sword and shield all the time, right, and instead using magic. But that kind of comes with a bit of a downside, where Link having constant access to like the sword and shield allows him to like easily cut bushes and block enemy attacks, and, you know, typically he's able to roll and stuff. So the spin kind of replaces like all of those mechanics all into one thing, and it's a really cool design. And really, I think it's one of the things that really just makes this game fun to play, in my opinion. And yeah, Impa just beats up some guys, no problem.
We just got a $50 donation from the Pat Demon, who says, excellent event, allô mouton, bonne journée gang. So that is fun. And someone on the chat is saying, Glan, your voice is soothing and I like your vibe. You earned my follow.
Thank you. People say that. I don't fully agree with it myself, but, you know, you gotta take it at face value.
Trust me, it is. If I hadn't slept that good, I probably love to sleep right now, because you're very soothing.
All right, so we got a little bit of a, oops. Got a little bit of like a movement section here to fully escape the castle. We get some tight jumps. We get access to the bed echo, which is kind of like one of the main movement mechanics in this game, actually, where we get to really make use of like this echo to, you know, get kind of wherever we want in the world. And we've figured out a lot of setups to like use just beds to get over things. You're supposed to get the boulder here, but we don't need it, so we're gonna just keep using beds. We drop a bed from up high. It has enough height to break those boxes instead of the intended solution to weigh them down with a boulder, but this is a lot faster. All right, we're almost out of kind of the intro area. We get a little bit more freedom to do stuff, although we are still kind of boxed in the early game section before we beat the first dungeon. We got a little micro optimization here. If you dive down in the water, you don't have to fall as far off the waterfall. This game has a little micro optimization, so we had a lot of people help with that. So the Echoes community has been a really interesting thing to be a part of since the game's release, because it's basically been composed of like all sorts of people from different Zelda speedruns who have come together to work on this game. It's really been quite fun to be a part of, and we've all worked to find all sorts of optimizations and stuff like that.
So we just got a $5 donation from Hyperdemic who says, "Hi Glan, you're cute."
Hi Hyper, you're cute. I love Hyper, he's my bro. So we get out here to Southern Beach. This is where we first encounter like actual enemies. And Try tells us, you know, if you can beat that enemy somehow, you can echo it. But Zelda also realizes that she actually has to be independent. There's no one here to fight for her anymore. She has to do it herself. It's a moment of personal growth for a royal child. So we're going to take the urchin, which is kind of a... Alright, whatever. Kind of messed that up, but we get the rupee there. The rupees are annoying in this game. Generally, we try to avoid them because the first time you pick a rupee up of any like denomination, it gives you this kind of 3-second text, which is really annoying. In longer categories, it's not really viable to skip the green rupee text, but in this one, in this category, it is. So it's a little bit annoying there, but it's just fine. We're gonna grab some rupees here. We're gonna need them a little bit later after we beat the first dungeon. But yeah, as I was saying, the urchin is kind of a good like early game damage source. You kind of just place it on things, but we're not going to use it very much overall. We're basically just going to use it to get a better enemy. So here we found the first waypoint, so these are kind of the fast travel points. We're going to get a few of these. These are important for setting up the wrong warp. This one we're not going to use, but Try makes you get it. He just doesn't let you leave until you come and look at it. So here we're going to immediately not go on the intended path, just use some beds, get up here. This is fully intended to be possible. It's not a glitch at all. Boy, this game is really great. It's kind of funny because, as I said, this is based on the engine of the Link's Awakening remake. And in that game, we found a glitch that allowed Link to get up on top of trees, which is out of bounds in that game. And we kind of have this, like, you know, headcanon that Grezzo, who are the developers of this, like, knew about that, and they were like, yeah, you know, we want to make that an intended thing in this game because it just looks really fun. A little movement here. Pushing at this waypoint. This one will be used later. And then we're going to have to enter the rift here. So all of the dungeons in this game are in these rifts. The rifts are basically like the material of the world getting swallowed into what's called the still world. And in this case, one of the dungeons here got swallowed in. And this dungeon is actually the place that we were in the intro where we fought Ganon. That's what gets swallowed up here. So this is kind of the result of that rift that was like chasing us out at the beginning. And so in every rift, there's kind of like a bit of like a platforming kind of lead up to the actual dungeon entrance. You'll see here, it's basically like kind of these weird pieces of the world in all over the place. And we see a familiar face up ahead there, who's the woman who got swallowed during that intro cutscene into the rift. And she's actually really going to help us out here. Now, we don't actually know her name. She only gets referred to as wife, so we call her wife. And we're going to use her to jump off her, so we're going to do a trick here called wife jump. So you see that cave there? You're supposed to go through that cave to get up to the higher section, but we don't have to do that. Wife is going to help us. She's going to place 3 beds, and then get on wife, place some beds on her face, and then we're up here. That saves like 30 seconds or something ridiculous. Maybe even more than that, I'm not sure. And then we're going to enter into the first dungeon here, which is Southern Ruins. This is kind of where, like, this is like kind of where the heart of the execution part of this run starts to kick in. There's a lot of, like, micro optimizations around this dungeon and difficult strats and all sorts of stuff. It's very difficult to get everything in this dungeon consistent and do it really cleanly. So we're going to try to do that. Here, Tri teaches us the bind ability, which is kind of like Ultra Hand in Tears of the Kingdom. You can basically attach Tri to an object and then move it, and it kind of copies your movement as you do it. So you can just use it to move anything out of the way, pretty much. Here we're going to use the Urchin for a couple enemies. I don't know. I'm going to get the Strangula. Strangula is very useful. So every time I get an echo, it's a little bit faster to actually open and close the menu than it is to just mash through the text. It's about 6 frames faster. It's especially faster if we want to use that echo right away, because then we can equip it while we have the menu open. So that's what you're seeing there. So we're going to get the Ignazol here. The Ignazol is one of the best echoes in the game, actually. He's unassuming, but he's very, very good. And that's why we call him the Ignichad in the community. So we're going up this elevator again. This time we get to optimize it a little bit, place some beds, and we can get off it a little bit earlier. Honestly, it's probably only like half a second or something, but it's cool. So we use the Ignazol. So the Ignazol is a fire source, so we use him to light the torches. That's annoying, but whatever. Now the quick menu here for echoes is another kind of interesting point. So the default sorting for this quick menu is most recently used. So as long as you're consistent and always menu correctly, everything will be always in the same place every run. But if you mess up, then stuff starts to get misplaced. So it's pretty important to menu properly in this game. But that also becomes easier like as you get better at it and you start to memorize more where your things are. So we're going to come up here, we're going to fight an Echo Link, who's a Dark Link. And he's going to die to the Ignichad very easily. Oh, I messed that up. It's fine. A little bit slower. So, for some reason, this thing does a lot of damage. We found out that it actually does... oops. That's not good. Okay, we found out that this thing actually does 8 damage when it attacks, which is more than a Dark Nut deals. They only deal 6 damage. So very early on to this game, we were fighting Link with Dark Nuts. But then it was found that using the Ignazol is somehow way faster. And, like, you know, I don't think anybody really understands why it actually deals so much damage. It doesn't make sense. It's just a little guy. He's just a little candle guy. So after beating Link, we get the sword. So If you remember in the intro, Link had sword, bow, and bombs. So there's 3 Dark Link fights throughout the game who each give us one of those items. We're only going to get the sword in this run. And in fact, in most runs, we only want to get the sword for other reasons, but yeah, so this gives us access to Sword Fighter mode, so we actually do kind of get to use the Sword and Shield like Link does, but it's basically on a timer, it's not always available, so it's mostly used for bosses and stuff, but it does have some other applications. Basically, any room where we need to do some fast combat, it's very nice to use Sword Fighter, but then we have to manage essentially the energy meter that's attached to it, and in most places you don't really get access to the drops that restore your energy. We'll talk about it more later, but first we got this Baba fight room. So these are cool. So normally you get kind of like pulled, like you kind of get pulled back and knocked over after you fully pull them apart, but if you jump at the right time, then you can negate that. It lets you go through faster, so we're gonna do that here. There. So you can just keep moving afterwards, as long as you jump at the right time, which is actually, for some reason, kind of a unique mechanic to Babas. Like, other things in the game that you pull don't work that way. I'm not really sure why, but... So we have the key there, now we have to head towards the big key. Down here in the side-scrolling section, we have a couple rooms with moving platforms that are cycle-based, but we have some really cool strats to kind of get through on the earliest possible cycle. So here we're going to make a couple beds, bind that to hold it in place, and then just jump across. And then here, Try gives us access to the reverse bind ability, which allows us to, after we bind onto an object, we can instead have Zelda follow its movement instead of it following Zelda's movement. But here we're going to just use Tarantulas to climb up really quickly. Very, very, very cool room. Very fast. Honestly, like, not that hard either. Like, I worked to make that strat fairly consistent. And here you're supposed to put that statue on the Switch, but you can just put a bed on it. You know. Freedom and puzzle solving. I can't even speak right now. Right, we got the big key, so we're going to come up on the boss here. This boss is not very threatening, but can be a little bit annoying. You remember what I talked about before, where bosses aren't truly random, but can be scripted? That's kind of what we want to do here. As long as we can do the same things, we'll know for sure that he won't do a particular attack that we don't want him to do. And he drops a lot of energy each time, so we're going to try to stay in Sword Fighter mode the whole fight. Very nice. That's the hardest part of it. Getting that hit. Because every time you go in and out of Sword Fighter mode, it takes over 2 seconds for both transitions. Oh, he did this attack anyway. We don't want him to do this. It's just a waste of time. I'm just going to grab the energy first. Okay, that was annoying. So that's Seismic Talus and Southern Ruins. So we got some cutscenes here after beating the boss. So if we have any more donations, that would be a good time.
Unfortunately, no donations have come in, but we are still $390 away from the Mario with a Shotgun bonus run. I'd really like to get to that. Plus, we have a ton of giveaways. At 4:30 p.m., we're going to be giving away 2 PS5s, one on-site and one for anyone who donates online that's in Canada. And that is a minimum $25 donation. Anybody who does a $25 donation is eligible to get one of these prizes. Donc, n'importe qui à la maison qui fait un don de 25 $ et plus peut être admissible à gagner à vers 4h30 dans le bloc d'animation. Un des 2 PlayStation 5 qu'on fait tirer, un sur place et un pour les gens à la maison. Donnez généreusement pour la Fondation des Gardiens Virtuels, bien sûr.
Yeah. I would like to see that bonus run, so get some donations in. Yeah, so at the end of every dungeon, there's quite a few things that happen. Normally, like in most Zelda games, you kind of just get the heart container. Here, there's a few things. We get a Tri level up. So when Tri levels up, he basically gains some new abilities depending on the level. In this case, he's going to get an extra triangle, which is the resources we use for echoes. So every echo has like a cost, a number of triangles, and you can only have so many out at a time based on that kind of maximum limit. And we also get might crystals here, which are used to upgrade the equipment that we get from Link. We're not going to do that in this run, but they are important in other categories, like glitchless. So I'm going to get the heart container here, which is just for safety. Normally in like PB attempts, we don't get that, but it's a little bit of safety, doesn't cost very much time. So we get out here, and unfortunately we get another little cutscene, but we're going to have a trick coming up here soon to skip a cutscene. It's called Luberry Skip. So Luberry is Impa's brother, and essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to come out of the dungeon and we're going to have Minister Left, who is the king's minister basically, and she was trapped in that rift, and she's going to come out here. She's recovered, and she's going to try to escort us to Luberry's house so that we can talk to him, and talk to him for like 2 minutes, which would introduce the next part of the game. We don't want to do that. That's really slow. So we're going to do a trick called Luberry Skip. And I'm going to be, to do that, I'm going to be doing a little bit of the floor is lava with beds. So this is going to be an abuse of the kind of void out system. So whenever you move around, the game kind of saves the last like ground tile you were standing on, and standing on beds doesn't count as that. So now it's remembering the last ground tile I was in that corner. As long as I keep standing on beds, I almost messed that up really badly. So here I can move this box a little bit and void out in the corner and spawn back here. And now I've spawned outside of the range that makes Minister Left kind of force me back into the escort. So I've just completely escaped the sequence entirely. And this leaves the game in a bit of a weird state. There's some stuff in the overworld that doesn't really work quite properly here. And one of the main problems right now is that our ability to warp is disabled because, they don't want you to warp out of the escort. So they disable your ability to warp. So we're going to have to get that back before we do the wrong warp itself. The way we do that might be a little peculiar, but we're going to come up here towards Castletown. We kind of have to cross the world a little bit here. But there's a guy here who's going to help us get our ability to warp back. And it's this guy with the acorn cap on his head. Yep. So we're going to play the acorn gathering minigame. The fun thing about this minigame is that it also disables your ability to warp, and when you exit it, it re-enables your ability to warp. So we just started and exited. Sorry guy, I didn't actually want to play. Alright, and we're going to go over here and get a waypoint here. So this is where we're going to kind of start getting into the wrong warp itself. And I should mention that I am doing this run on the 1.0 version. The current patch 1.0.2 patched the menu storage glitch, which is going to enable this wrong warp to happen. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the Eternal Forest here, and the Eternal Forest is surrounded by a void out zone, because they don't want you to go in or out except through the normal entrance. But what I'm going to do is activate Sword Fighter mode. Oh, I messed that up. Pressed the wrong button. I'm going to activate Sword Fighter mode as I enter, and then that's going to give me a 2-frame window to open a menu as the void out happens. So now I have the map open, but I also have kind of the game working normally. This is a state called menu storage. So I'm able to warp down near Southern Ruins again. And you're going to see that the screen will look frozen, but if you look in the bottom right of the mini-map, Zelda's moving. So we're going to go up here, and we're going to re-enter the rift. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically make use of this state. It's going to allow me to open up a second map. And that's going to, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be in the still world, and I'm going to try to warp, but before the warp actually happens, I'm going to change layers. And so I'm going to select this warp, and then change layers and warp. And that's what that's going to do is it's going to basically warp me to the index of what that waypoint is on the overworld, but in the array of spawn points in the still world, and that happens to be Null's body, which is pretty much the end of the game. So now we're here. And I'm very under-equipped for this, very, very under-equipped for this. But luckily, there's a few saving graces here with this. So normally when you enter this section of the game, it takes away your sword and stuff, but because we wrong warp in, it doesn't do that. It also normally takes away your ability to save, but it doesn't do that either. So we're gonna go through this room here. There's a few waves of basically these monsters that spawn from these blobs after they touch you. So then we can avoid them until they stop moving. Oh, never mind. All right, we're gonna retry that. Yeah, so the goal here is that we're going to want to, for the second and third waves, we're going to want to kill the blobs themselves before they spawn the enemies, because the enemies are really annoying to fight. This first wave isn't too bad. We just kind of box these moblins in the corner and Link kills them all. It's, yeah. So after enough movement, they stop for just a moment, which is just enough time to be able to kill it. And there we stand in the specific spot where it'll just circle us forever. It can't actually reach us because it has a limited turning radius. And then we can just beat it up. That last one spawns a Lionel, which is really, really bad. If that spawns, he will instantly kill you. Here we see a negative consequence of wrong warping. Messing up some game flags. So normally Link is supposed to go on the left side there and have it blocked off. Well, I guess it's kind of a positive and negative, as we'll see later. But here I have to avoid a soft lock. Okay, so hitting that switch opens the doors and plays a cutscene that waits for Link to walk through the door on the left, but Link isn't there. So if you just hit the switch, then it'll wait for Link to go through the door, which will never happen, and it'll soft lock. So we have to pause on the frame that the switch gets hit and then reload. We get a difficult combat room here. Link frequently has skill issues on his side, so we can help him out. I can't totally blame him because the Freezard is a really annoying enemy. But we can melt him with the Ignizols. Right. So now, as I was saying, that was kind of a negative because we had to avoid the soft lock, but it's a positive in a way because the intended route here is that you keep going forward and you go through this 2D section that's kind of annoying. Because normally this section on the left gets blocked off, but because it didn't, we can just backtrack and go this way, and go this way along with Link, which is much more convenient and fast. It saves like 40 seconds or something. And that's basically, that's through the meaningful part of Null's body. So after that, we're going to be heading into the final boss, which is Null. Null is a really, really complicated and difficult final boss, especially with such low, you know, so few hearts and not very good equipment or whatever. Kind of at a high level, how this boss works is there's going to be 3 phases, and 2 of those phases kind of have like sub-phases. And the overall goal is that I'm going to be pulling on his arms until they're stretched out all the way, and Link will be able to one-shot them at that point. So we kind of have to work with Link. Unfortunately, Link's AI is not amazing, and he often just does very questionable things. So we have a lot of kind of strats and stuff to try to keep him in order. So he just like takes forever to do a spin attack for no reason. All of this is kind of very well planned out to grab the arms before Null is even able to attack me. And then we need to damage the main body here. Link will often just kind of go off on his own and do whatever he feels like. So we kind of just put him on the toddler leash for those so that he just actually sits there and hits the boss instead of whatever else. Come on, buddy. You're supposed to be, you know, the legendary hero. Try to get these hearts. Luckily, Null is a bit forgiving with hearts. Like, every time you break an arm, it drops a heart. So, you're not too likely to die, except kind of like very near the end of the fight, or if things go really wrong. The first phase, there's not really like too much going on, but after this is where it gets a little bit more hectic, or specifically in the third phase. The second phase is basically nothing. Oh. The real final boss of this game is the targeting system. Okay, that was weird. We try to use some excess energy there to speed up the last time we hit him there. We do it on the last one because that one kind of skips the transition out of sword fighter mode, which takes about a second, so it's best to just do it on the last one there. So the second phase here, we get the side-scrolling water section. This is basically just an auto-scroller. Basically, Null will start with 500 HP, and he'll damage himself like over time as he goes through, until you reach the end where he gets set to 1 HP. And basically, we can't possibly do enough damage to him until that point where he gets to 1 HP. So we're just going to wait until the end and hit him once. It's pretty weird and stupid, honestly. But phase 3 is where it's going to get very hectic. So remember what I said again, that bosses aren't like truly random. It can kind of be scripted. So we're hopefully going to be scripting the third phase because there's way more going on in this phase, and we really want things to be predictable and know what we're doing, and that's going to let it be way faster than if we were trying to react to everything. So now he has 5 arms to pull, and 3 of them have these tries attached to them, and he's going to summon bosses. So we're going to try to essentially clear every sub-phase in 2 cycles. Uh-oh, that's bad, I think. Yeah. I'm going to save here. You can actually save in the boss. So if I die in phase 3, I'll just have to redo phase 3 instead of the whole fight, basically. Unfortunately, I'm going to be way off script now, so that's going to be fun. Alright, there we go. Yeah, as I was saying, Link's AI is not perfect. Sometimes he just kind of screws you over. It's unfortunate, but most of the time you are able to mitigate anything that happens. Alright, I think this is still fine. That's not good. Yeah, that's not good. Alright, we get a better shot at this afterwards. We're going to try to actually get it on script properly this time. Yeah, if you get off script, it can be really easy to die. Everything here does a lot of damage. It is a bit unfortunate sometimes that Link just screws you over, but yeah. I think I also messed up a little bit. Like, usually it's not just Link's fault, like it's usually you also did something a little bit wrong. Alright, so there we go. So once the tri-arms are dead, he can't summon a boss anymore, so we try to basically prioritize those. We try to get 1 tri-arm and 1 claw on the first cycle, and then the other 2 tri-arms right away on the second cycle, and that's going to basically prevent... Ooh. Alright, that's fine. So on these arm phases where the arms are in the walls, now he's summoning enemies. That's not good. That's really not good. On this one he does Dark Nuts. On the next one he's going to do Lizalfos and Borblins. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Alright. So on the first and third sub-phases, the boss spawns are... Oh, that's bad. Alright, that's fine. No, I still got hit. It's fine though, because he drops a lot of hearts, so we're not gonna die. So that spawn was always going to be the 3 Ganons. Again, the final boss of this game is the targeting system, because I didn't want to target the body. Alright. All right, we're back on track now. So here he's going to summon Lizalfos and Borblins. This is usually considered to be the most dangerous phase of the fight, because the Lizalfos are just really quick, do a lot of damage, and they're just hard to kill. They're hard for Link to kill, but this is good. Some people will actually use Strantulas here because they're actually invincible when they're just sitting on the ground, at least to... No, they're pretty much invincible to everything except like elemental damage. Alright, so here we get the Scorchel phase. So this spawn is actually random, but is that kind of like pseudo-random? Alright, so from here we should be fine. So if he attacks with the claw, then he can't, and I grab a Triarm, he can't start summoning until I release it. So here we have plenty of time to get all 3 remaining arms. Just end it.
Yeah, there just was a glitch with the sound, but it seems to be
All right. So time is going to be very soon here. It's going to be after the Triforce pops out of null here as I'm pulling it out. So it'll be time in now. 45. Not bad with a null death. That was kind of an unfortunate null fight. Things kind of went a little bit astray there, but that's kind of how it's been going for me in runs lately. It's a very hectic boss fight. So that was Echoes of Wisdom, any % restricted. This game has quite a few categories that are available. Honestly, I think it's a lot of fun. So try it out if you're interested. As for me, you can find me twitch.tv/Glan. I'm running this game right now, focusing on Zelda speedruns in general. I also do Link to the Past. I want to learn Zelda 2. Doing some casual stuff as well, casual Zelda content. So, if that's your thing, feel free to follow me. And get those donations in. I want to see Mario with a shotgun. And that's it for me.
Well, thank you very much, Glan, for this great run of the new Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Stay tuned. We have upcoming Super Mario. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. 64. Yeah, sorry. I'm thinking of bonus run because the bonus run is already there, almost there. On est presque à la bonus run. On a besoin de $390 pour Mario with a shotgun. Mais en attendant, on s'en va à Super Mario World. 64, sorry.